Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the Peach Bowl between Texas and Arizona State. I am going to pick Texas. I'm going to pick them to cover that line of 12.5. Going to be a remarkable game. Really love Arizona State. Think Cam Scatterbo is going to have plenty of fun in this game. But at the end of the day, I do think that Texas run defense is a little too much. I think Arizona State not getting the pressure they need is going to be their doing. But at the end of the day, we got to get into the granddaddy of them all. We have Ohio State against Oregon, a remarkable game over there in Pasadena, and one of those games that you just can't wait for. It is a rematch from one of the best games that we've seen all year between these two up in Eugene earlier in the year, and that's kind of the big question that I have going into this one is how much is carrying over from that first matchup? How similar are these teams to what they were the first time around in? Relatively similar. Now, the one big difference is that Ohio State offensive line. The offensive line injuries all happened after the Oregon game, so they're going to have to figure out a way to handle this D-line for Oregon with that new offensive line. They did an incredible job against Tennessee. Some of that was play calling. Some of that was just them coming ready to play and being really ready for that challenge. Oregon is the 34th best run defense in the country, has 40 sacks on the year. They are a very solid group up front. Jamari Caldwell is going to be a load to deal with. Mateo Uyunglele, you have Jordan Birch on the other side. It's going to be a lot to deal with. And not only that, not only the physical specimens that you're going to have to deal with on one side, but just the blitz packages that Tosh Lupoi has been able to send throughout the year, it makes things pretty complicated. So Donovan Jackson, he's out there on the left tackle for the first time in his career, has played really well the first couple of games. This is going to be a little bit different of one. You're not just going to have one-on-one matchups where you just have to beat the guy in front of you. You're going to have what looks like a one-on-one matchup, and then the guy stunts around and you have to pick up someone totally different. So it's going to be a little bit more of a mind game for this offensive line than it was for Tennessee and than it was really for any game they've played thus far, and I'm sure Tosh Lupoi is going to attack that offensive line with just about everything he has. Now, on the other side, the impossible task that Oregon has to deal with is these wide receivers. Ohio State is an absolute nightmare to guard, no matter how you cut it. Jeremiah Smith went for 100 in the first game, and Emeka Egbuka went for 93. They did plenty through the air in the first time around, and obviously, you're going to want to fix that if you're Oregon. Thing is, these wide receivers are playing on a different level right now. Jeremiah Smith played probably the best game of the year when he played against Tennessee last week, and Emeka Egbuka is not far from that Ohio State receiving yards record, so there's going to be a lot of juice in this game. And Will Howard probably playing his best game of the year, or best football of the year. Yeah, that was his best game against Tennessee. I think his second best game was against Oregon early in the year. So you're in a situation where you're going to have your hands full. There's no doubt about that. You have a Will Howard that is very confident playing the best football he's played. You have wide receivers that are a load to deal with on the outside, and you have running backs that are going to be insanely tough to keep track of for your linebackers. Now, on the other side, the Oregon wide receivers are going to be plenty to deal with for the Ohio State team as well. 149 for Tez Johnson the first time around, 75 for Evan Stewart, and plenty for Terrence Ferguson as well. So you're in a situation for Ohio State where you got to keep up with all these guys, and it's going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with. Now, both these run games, they are very talented. They have guys that can absolutely make game-changing plays. Overall, when you look statistically, they're relatively middle of the road, but you got Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins on one side, you have Jordan James, Noah Whittington on the other. You're going to be pretty successful. Very talented running backs nonetheless. Jordan James went for 115 and 5 yards per carry in the first time around. Definitely one of those huge things that you're going to have to watch. And then you also have Ohio State in the first game. Travion Henderson had a big time, I believe, 56-yard run, something like that. Outside of that, did not have a ton of success. So that's definitely something to watch, even without the O-line injuries. They really did struggle to kind of get that run game going the first time around. They're going to have to get it going in this one. They can't just assume that Jeremiah Smith's going to make all the plays in the world or Emeka Egbuka is going to be open all the time. They have to make sure that they can get that run game going. It's been a little bit of a struggle as of late, but once you get Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins downfield, they're a load to deal with. There's no doubt about that. And then on the Oregon side, I think Jordan James is the most important player for Oregon as they move forward. I think if they can get that run game to an elite level, if he can play really good football over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long they're still in this thing, I think Oregon's offense is going to be essentially impossible to stop. I'll be totally honest. I think it's going to be one of those things where you're looking around, you're trying to figure out all of the different ways that Oregon can beat you, and you forget that number 20 is in the backfield. He is going to be a load to deal with, and definitely is going to be one of those players that might not get all the trappings, might not get all the talk, but absolutely will have plenty to say about this Oregon national title run. This is going to be an incredible game. I don't think I have to say that. It's almost impossible to pick because I think these are the two best teams in the country. I'll be totally honest. I think you could look back and say that was a pseudo-national championship that was happening tomorrow. But at the end of the day, there's going to be margins that change this game. Both of them have really veteran quarterbacks that are playing the best football I've seen them play. Both have athletic pass catchers. Both have remarkable playmakers on both sides of the ball. Both have D-lines that are absolutely terrifying. I don't know which way you go in this one. I think it's kind of just throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping that it sticks. But at the end of the day, it's going to be an incredible game. Ohio State's trying to silence all the fringe crazies, as they've been called over the last couple of days, and Oregon just trying to continue that perfect run. I think it's going to be a fight. I think it's going to be so much fun to watch. And one of the guys you're going to want to watch is the guy we just talked about, Jordan James, the most important player for Oregon in this game and going forward in their national title run. If he can get that run game going, if he can get 70 yards, 100 yards, especially in these games, they're going to be a remarkably hard team to stop. They're already really hard to stop with that pass game and Dylan Gabriel's legs. You add this guy as a very, very real threat, and he already is, to be totally fair. But at the end of the day, if he can kick that up just another notch, he's going to be absolutely terrifying. This offense is going to be absolutely terrifying. And then Jabbar Muhammad. He's been called out just a little bit by Jeremiah Smith this week, saying, you better not play man coverage because I'm going to beat man coverage. And frankly, I would say he's probably right. But at the end of the day, Jabbar Muhammad is going to get a lot of those assignments if they're in man coverage, whether it's Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka or Carnell Tate. He's going to have his hands full, and they need a big play in this game. They need to get Will Howard a little bit off kilter. They need to make sure that they get him a little bit nervous. If he can make one big play, if he can go out there and get one pick against man coverage against Emeka Egbuka, let's say, that's going to be a huge thing and definitely totally change this game. He's probably the best coverage corner they have, and he really has to act like it tomorrow. Emeka Egbuka will be on the other side of him for a number of those plays. He's not far at all from that Ohio State receiving yards record. Remarkable player, has been that way his entire career in. This is going to be a huge game for him. He's in one of those positions where a lot of people are talking about Jeremiah Smith right now. A lot of people are talking about number 4, seeing what plays he's going to make, seeing how he's going to impact this game. Number 2 is pretty darn good as well, and he absolutely wants to be heard from in this game. And I think when you talk about Oregon, when you have so much that is going to be going on in the interior of that defense, when you talk about that front 7, very talented, very diverse, very different in the way that they come after you, getting a guy that can just leak out on a drag route and then go for 40 yards is a really, really tough thing to guard. I definitely think that Emeka Egbuka is going to have a huge thing to say in this game, and I think him and Jeremiah Smith are just going to be nightmares to guard for Oregon. And then Denzel Burke. I've talked about this a number of times. Denzel Burke wants to get back on that field. He wants to get back guarding Tez Johnson in this game because it did not go his way the first time around. He badly wants to get that matchup again. He badly wants to prove that he can handle that matchup, and he's going to have his hands full. The reality is, when you look back at that Ohio State-Oregon game, there wasn't a lot really wrong with the Ohio State defense other than that back end. They let guys get behind them, particularly Denzel Burke, and he badly wants to right that ship. I think he can do it. He's going to have his hands full to do it. There's no doubt about that. And then for keys to the game, Oregon's got to throw the first punch in this one. Ohio State is really riding high. They have all the energy in the world. They have all the confidence in the world. It's partly because they came out against Tennessee and just buried them really initially. There was no question about where that game was going pretty much after the first 2 drives for Ohio State. Can Oregon kind of flip that script? Can they get up 7-0, get up 14-0, and then Ohio State looks up and they say, oh no, it's happening again. We're going to lose this game to this team again, and we're going to be out of this playoff, and then the doubt starts to creep in. You never really know how far removed these teams are from some of these bad moments until they get hit with one of those bad moments. And then use Dylan Gabriel's legs. This Ohio State defense is way too good to not attack them in literally every possible way you can. So that means Dylan Gabriel's legs. That means inside and outside runs. That means playing around with Noah Whittington as a end-around guy, or using Evan Stewart as a jet sweep guy, or Tez Johnson, whatever that looks like. You have to find a way to attack this defense in every single way you have at your disposal. This is going to be a huge way, where this pass rush has been very aggressive over the last couple of weeks, has been very, very incredible. If he can scoot out and scoot for a big third down conversion, or even just 12 yards on a second and 20, it's going to be a huge thing. It's going to totally change this game, and it has a number of different times in his career. His legs have been really the story of the game. It absolutely could be in this one as well. And then attack the offensive line. As good as they were against Tennessee, it's still a big-time question mark as you head into this game. Oregon has 40 sacks on the year. Jordan Burch has 8.5. Mateo Uyunglele has 10.5. Go after these guys. Don't go after them one-on-one necessarily, but play around with different things. Use different studs. Use different packages and really attack this offensive line, because the reality is I'd make them prove to me that they're ready to go. I'd make them prove to me that they can handle my group, and I'm not sure that they can. So really attack this group. Make them prove that that Tennessee game was not a fluke in any way, and really try to get after Will Howard early in this game. And then for Ohio State, keep that edge that they had against Tennessee, the Will Howard kind of swagger that he was walking around with. You're gonna need it in this one. This is a better team across the board, especially maybe not that defensive line, but overall, they got to set the tone. They got to make sure that they walk out there with all the confidence in the world. Maybe Jack Sawyer can talk a little trash before the game once again. I think their D-line is going to be huge in this game. Just kind of set the tone. Show everyone that you are the toughest group on the field, that you are going to be the group that totally changes this game. I just think Ohio State has to walk out with their chest held high and then really go attack to start this game. And then give number 4 tons of chances. You know, sometimes offense is complicated. Sometimes you have to play around with different schemes and different formations and different personnel groups. Sometimes you have Jeremiah Smith. The reality is this guy went for 103 and a score against Tennessee. He can do even more than that in this game. Just give him chances. Just give him 10 targets in this game. I don't even care if they're good targets. I don't even care if he's open. Throw the ball in his direction. He will make a play. I know that's not the most nuanced analysis you've ever heard. At the end of the day, Jeremiah Smith does not require nuanced analysis. You throw the ball up, he makes the play. That's the end of the story. And then at the end of the day, you got to eliminate yak yards. If they can get yards after the catch, you're in a lot of trouble. If you let Tez Johnson catch the ball with no one around him, he's going to make you pay. He averages 7.6 yak per reception. He is going to be a load to deal with, and they have to put these guys on the ground. So Caleb Downs, Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom, all of those guys on the back end, they have their hands full. There's no doubt about that. But if you let that guy get that one catch on third down, make sure you put him on the ground, because if you don't, then he could run right around you, run for a touchdown, and then you're looking up at the end of the third quarter and you're down 14 because you let a couple of big-time players just get away from you on a couple of plays. So it's going to be an incredible game. It's about as good as you can possibly hope for in one of these games. It's two of the best teams, maybe the two best teams in the entire country. In the entire country, two really, really talented teams, two teams that fit the mold very, very well of what a national title team looks like. I'm going to go with Ohio State. I would love to give you plenty of reasons for this. The reality is I'm going to go with the guy that I think is going to make the biggest play, and I think that's Jeremiah Smith. I think he's going to make a huge play in this game. I think Will Howard's playing with a ton of confidence, and I weirdly think this Oregon train the wheels are going to fall off at some point or another. I can't promise that it's going to be tomorrow, but at the end of the day, I think Ohio State's coming in with all the energy in the world. I think they're going to be really tough to deal with, and I think Jeremiah Smith makes one huge play in this game that totally changes this game and possibly the season for Ohio State. But it's going to be an awesome one. It's a granddaddy of them all. It's two of the best teams in the country, maybe the two best teams in the country, some of the best players in the country, and it's going to be down to the wire. I can almost promise you that. It is going to be a crazy game, and I think Ohio State's going to come out with a win. I think it's really as coin flip of a game as you could possibly imagine. I'll go Ohio State for this time around. I'll ride down with the ship, and if Oregon ends up winning, I might just pick them to win my national title. But we'll get to that in time, obviously. Let's take our second break here, and when we come back, we got to get to the night game. We'll get to the Sugar Bowl between Notre Dame and Georgia, one of the more confusing and unpredictable games that we'll have the next couple of days. So we'll break it down right after this, so stick with us.